views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, it's okay to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show, with a surprise for you every weekend right here. Here's your host, Sue Ellen Sanders.
And welcome to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. We're so glad you're here. This is the type of show that is going to have a lot of information in it, and it might be stuff you want to refer to again. And if you do, you'll be able to find us on our YouTube channel, WPSL TV, and there'll be a little video clip of myself and my guest, who today, by the way, is Dr. Helen Wild. She is the Chief Academic Officer for St. Lucie Public Schools, and she's here with me today to talk about everything. So we're going to talk about the spring that just passed. We're going to talk about programs that are going on for the summer, and we're going to talk about the future and schools opening in August. So, Dr. Wild, welcome.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. So glad to be here and see you again and be back to visit and meet all your listeners.
And it's nice to see people face to face again. Didn't you feel like for a while there was just limited a number of people that you saw?
Absolutely, other than on a screen, so it's hard not to reach out and hug people.
Yeah, it is. And the Zoom calls, they've been interesting, or the other types of virtual meetings that we've been having, but they sure don't take the place of talking face to face. You can't read somebody's cues. You can't see what they're doing and what they're if they're listening. I do like the way that Zoom highlights the face of the person who's talking, because what that did for me is it made me realize how frequently I talk over somebody else.
Yes, and as long as everyone turns their camera on, that helps as well.
It does.
When the cameras are off, it's really hard to read people.
Anyhow, we're going to be talking about some virtual programs, and we'll also be talking about some in-person programs. But let's start kind of at the beginning. And that would be kind of spring break, wouldn't it? So spring break.
The official beginning for us was March 13th.
Yes.
That was the day that we found out that we needed to initially close for 2 weeks, which was the week of spring break and the week after, with a very uncertain future at that point.
And that was just really the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, I don't think that anyone knew really how long we'd be out of commission.
Absolutely. We started some initial planning the Tuesday before that March 13th. What if? Is it possible? And at that point, it was just, no one was really grasping the reality that could happen. And then March 13th, and it was actually like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on March 13th when we got the news. And so it
was Friday the 13th.
It was Friday the 13th. Yes, it was. And, getting ready to go into a normal spring break, that just changed on a dime. And anyone that was going anywhere was on call and back at work. And we went into overdrive, making sure that we were ready and put a robust training program in place for the week following spring break, because you don't go into such a different type of education without providing training to everybody involved.
And when you say everybody involved, you're talking about both the teachers and the administration and the students.
Absolutely. We had we paced it out so that people could learn what they needed, the essentials that they needed to learn over that whole week. So you didn't have to learn everything on the Monday, but you learned something and you practiced it, and then you learned something new the next day. So for us, for our teachers, that meant learning what curriculum they would be using. We use a learning management system, the same one district-wide, to try to make it easier for teachers and parents and students. And that main program is called Canvas. So everybody needed Canvas training, We did have teachers already trained at every school in Canvas. We
Good
had,
thing,
yes,
right?
thank goodness, because they were a great support system. We had Canvas lead teachers at every school, but we had a lot more people to train, so there was that. And of course, the training was all virtual. And then we had to train on Microsoft Teams, which is our system. You mentioned Zoom. Teams is what we use. And that was a tool that has been so valuable to us because that's how we spoke to parents, that's how teachers spoke to each other and to their administrators, and it's how some classes were held. And then we had to train on how to use this software with students with disabilities, special population students. That had to happen during that same week. And then you asked which people. That teachers had one kind of training. The administrators had to learn how to lead under these circumstances. Guidance counselors, school counselors, and mental health professionals, they continued their services to kids. As you can imagine, those were needed now more than ever in some ways, with people feeling disconnected to each other and missing school and needing school. And so, it was a lot of training that happened in that 1 week.
What do you think the biggest challenge of that week was?
It would be really hard to
just
pinpoint
identify one.
Yes, because all of the moving pieces that were happening, we were developing training and putting out training at the same time that we were setting up for help desk phone calls. But people on those calls who were very skilled and knowledgeable and could really talk people through the issues. So we set up phone banks for parents and for teachers. So we had to pull people together for that, make sure we were all on the same page. Food service had to gear up
At the same time.
Because
you had all those kids who are used to getting free and reduced lunch and breakfast at school that all of a sudden are not getting that food.
And what does it look like when you're social distancing? How do you do that? We were also working through the challenges of the different employee groups and how they're going to work and where they're going to work from and what rules apply. Looking at our labor contracts with all of our employee groups. And making sure the people that were essential to be on site felt safe to do their jobs. And it was just evolving so quickly. And I think one of the keys was strong communication system. It was critical that we were communicating every single day. And our chief communications officer, Lydia Martin, was at the table for every decision, every conversation along the way. Our board members were informed and very well aware of every step and involved. So it was, I cannot pick one greatest challenge. It was just keeping everything in motion with constant communication, trying to plan ahead and foresee what can happen, and then also being ready to react for things that you may not have anticipated.
Well, on top of it all, you also had equipment challenges because not every home has a computer or a tablet or for children to work on, and so you had to figure out a way to get those out to the people who needed them.
I would say that most of the district level staff would say that was probably the greatest challenge in terms of establishing a system to gather all the right devices together, prep those devices for use at home to make sure they would actually work when they were off of our servers and on a home network. And
so IT was very
was critically important, and our chief operations officer coordinated all that to be sure that we also kept track of our inventory. And we need to make sure that we have those devices on campus on time for when school starts. So putting all those systems in place and then coming up with distribution plans that also allowed for social distancing. So you probably saw those drive-throughs at the schools with computers being distributed. It was amazing.
And the gloves, and I know, my husband was involved in it, and one of the challenges, and I know this happened in Martin County too, was the fact that parents had to sign for the computers, and they didn't want to hand the pens back and forth. And so you ended up getting pens, and I helped get the pens and pencils donated. Actually, the Port St. Lucie Police Department was one of the people who donated pens. So the parents would use the pen and then keep it in their car.
Right. You can't even begin to
Yeah.
imagine all those little details
Until it happens.
and then
Yeah.
it's just put everything in motion, and
It is.
involve some hard workers that are going to get it done.
So what do you think the best part has been about the virtual learning for kids?
I think the best part has probably been all of the new knowledge that our teachers and our students have gained through this process. One of the things I hear now all the time is from teachers is that I feel so much better prepared to integrate technology in new, exciting, fun ways when I'm back in my classroom. Because, previously we've been training and introducing great software programs and ways to use technology, but there's only so much time that people can dedicate to that learning. And right now they had no barriers to that learning. They had to do it. They got it done, and they've been very successful. So I have to give a lot of credit to our teachers out there. They are also all saying they've worked harder than ever. Mm-hmm. And I think another benefit is we hear a lot now from our parents about how much they appreciate their teachers now.
They do. Mm-hmm. I know posting on social media, I'd seen a lot of comments from parents that were saying, well, now I've got to teach my kid and work at home at the same time. And as a former teacher, I always made sure I pointed out, no, you're not preparing the lesson. No, you're not grading the lesson.
Right.
No, you're not creating the assignment. No, you're not grading tests. You're not putting the grades in. You're not, God bless you, you are stepping up to the plate big time, but you are not teaching your kid. The teacher is teaching your kid.
Right. And I think the greatest struggle in so many households was, how do I do my job from home? The adults having to do their jobs from home and then supervise their child's learning. I would say they had to supervise it because the teacher was no longer in control of the learning environment.
Exactly.
So, and we did have questions about, why can't my first grader navigate this program on their own? With virtual learning, one of the greatest challenges for young children is you do need an adult involved in your space, in your learning space, that's guiding you through, because a kindergarten or first grader, it cannot be self-directed in virtual learning. So that is a real challenge, and we knew it was a real dilemma for some of our families, probably most of our families.
And especially when you think about the families who have 3 or 4 kids at home, and maybe they only have one device. But the positive thing is probably parents and kids and teachers all found that a dedicated period of time where you didn't have to stop to get a hall pass to go to the bathroom, and where you weren't tempted to talk to your classmates, you probably get more done in that dedicated period of time.
More time on task, yes.
Yeah.
I think we found that as professionals as well. So I hope that some students did learn how to self-direct their day and manage their time. That's a soft skill that they need. So that would be something that you actually need to do, that to be successful in virtual education. And with the challenges of the sharing of the device, it didn't look like it would in a true virtual environment when people select to do virtual. Because when you select to do it, you've got your dedicated device, and we can schedule real-time lessons every day. And that will be our goal going forward as we have more time to deal with whatever the future holds. But that was something that was limiting to us, the sharing of devices. And I talked to colleagues all over the state who shared that same concern.
And what was the solution?
Well, when
you just had to...
In the short term, the solutions were many. One was to have people on call to help people, because switching between the 2 learners on one computer for some people was tricky. So teaching people how to do that, having backups, like we had many programs that did work on other devices, phones, iPads, Chromebooks. So we had that all over our website, trying to inform people that there are other devices. There's actually apps for Canvas and apps for Teams. So Most of our students do have a phone, so if their brother or sister or parents were on the computer, you can submit that assignment
could do it
on
on
your
the
phone.
phone.
Yes.
And then you set up a lot of free internet.
Yes, we did. We worked with internet providers to provide free or discounted internet service. And then in addition to that, there were some zones within the community where we knew there were more people that did not have internet access. And we wired up our buses to be hotspots. And so, Terrence O'Leary and our Chief Operating Officer and all his departments mobilized our buses and put them out there in several locations, and they're still out there now providing a hotspot for summer learning.
Well, let's move on. So, you were thrown into it. You met the challenges. There might have been some confusion in a lot of households, especially when parents are used to, or families are used to a certain schedule, and it's disrupted. But you've provided the tools that they needed, and there was new information that they take away that probably a lot of kids are going to go back to school being better self-directed. And maybe, as you said, the parents will have a greater appreciation of,
Right.
Some of the challenges of teaching. But now we're in summer officially.
Yes.
So the academic year has ended, and you had a virtual graduation for the high school seniors, but you're going to also have an in-person graduation as well.
Yes, we are. We're in the planning mode right now for our face-to-face graduations. Most of them are at Lawnwood Stadium at the end of the month, and there will be social distancing. The students will be wearing masks, but they will have their moment to celebrate. And it won't look exactly the same. We are limiting the number of guests and, really trying to take as many precautions as possible.
But you're one of the few school districts that's actually taken the step to do a delayed actual graduation.
Yes, our superintendent, Mr. Gent, has been very prudent and very careful in the steps that we've taken, and he's really tried to measure the pulse of what our students and our parents would like to see happen. And he actually did meet with student leaders at all of our high schools to get their opinion and listen to them. And in the end, they were very strong about wanting to have that opportunity for those who choose to go.
Yeah.
Of course, they did have virtual celebrations. They don't have to go if they're not comfortable going. So it's sort of a happy medium, delayed, and if nothing changes in terms of the news and the guidelines coming out, that we'll be moving forward with that.
And of course, that's the challenge for all of us, and no matter what career we're in, is that we can't predict when something is going to end if we don't know what's going to happen next. And that was probably one of the scariest things for everybody. And so when we talk about virtual learning for the summer and in-person learning, there have been some organizations who chose to move ahead with summer camps and summer activities. And of course, our governor last week said that it was okay to have larger group sizes for children that were involved in summer camp and sports activities. But it's really a personal decision up to the family, how you feel about having your kids involved in something like that. As far as the school district, you have been virtual. You're virtual for the summer.
Yes, right now our summer learning we have a lot of it. We probably have more opportunities for students, although virtual, this summer than most summers, but they are not face-to-face. We have been working extremely closely with those organizations that you were just referring to. I have been meeting with Children's Services Council and Boys and Girls Club and United Way and the Round Table, and they're
And the YMCA has a
And
camp
yes,
too.
yeah, and the YMCA has
Yeah.
been involved.
Yeah.
All of the Children's Services Council summer programs, where we have shared our summer learning opportunities, even down to walking them through the curriculum. Because if they have an academic component to their summer camps, they are welcome to use our summer curriculum that we've provided. Not required to, but if they provide students with a place to work, quiet place during the day, give them a break from any physical activities, give them a well-rounded day, we welcome that support. So we've really tried to stay in constant contact with everybody.
Do you think there's going to be a lot of students that are behind when they start back to school?
That is an excellent question, and we will be assessing that. I am certain that there will be students that are behind. Every summer we experience a summer slide, and this one was 9 weeks longer. In trying to look at the silver lining, we have really sort of gotten all hands on deck to monitor students, to try to engage them if they were not engaged. All of those folks that are not classroom teachers, instructional coaches, media specialists, deans, they were all involved with trying to reach out to students and keep them learning. We also put backup plans in place because really at a certain point, grading was no longer the priority. It was learning, just the learning. Any learning opportunity we could provide. So we utilized our TV station and some of our great teachers, and we created a motivation station for elementary students where we had pre-recorded lessons. We even gave tips to our teachers if a student is not accessing virtual learning, use this as a backup, call them and ask them what they learned during those lessons that the students could access on television. Things like that. But with that in mind, we know we're still going to have some learning loss, and we're going to put lots of programs in place to address that, including our summer programs.
Well, one of the things that we were looking at as far as a positive is the number of people like sports stars and movie stars and who got involved reading books to kids to make things a little bit more exciting. And I know that you've shared that information on your social network, and I have as well. Your Facebook page is a great place for people to go and check and see what else is out there, or if you want to see what options are currently available. It's a really good combination of everything that's going on with St. Lucie Schools.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that you post our postings all the time. I see them on your Facebook page. We do put everything out there, and also visit our school district website. We have an extended learning. We always have a summer slide website, but of course this year we started it earlier with extended learning opportunities, and there's more on there now than ever with programs that parents can access for their students and fun things in all different subject areas.
And the library is and Scholastic are both doing reading contests.
Yes.
And some kids are just more motivated when they're in a competition.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you need to do that. Let's talk about your virtual summer offerings now. How can people find out more about them?
Okay. For the most part, students have been invited, in fact, because they already started. So we targeted about 2,400 students in the elementary grades, and they were specifically students who were either receiving help with their reading, interventions with their reading prior to March 13th, or also struggled in the virtual time period or were not as fully engaged as they needed to be. So they were invited to this summer camp. It is actually covering literacy and mathematics. And it is a different curriculum because we're looking for something fun. This is still the summer after all. So it is engaging books around social emotional learning themes in the literacy component. The students actually do have physical workbooks in their hands, so it feels more like school than this sort of emergency virtual school did. We made sure to provide every participating student with a computer, so we're avoiding that sharing issue. for the summer program. That was a high priority for us.
So no excuses on this.
No excuses.
This summer program.
Right, and we did record the lessons, so they are the same K through 5, also available on our TV and streaming on our website. And we did that for consistency, and we did it prior to knowing for sure that we were going to hire teachers to go along with it. But the side benefit of that is we've shared that with all of our summer camps as well, so they could show a lesson.
Well, and so that was my question. So even though the virtual summer program has already begun, if a parent is listening and they think that their child just needs a little extra help, they could still find that information on your website.
They could. They would not have the Scholastic workbook to go along with it, so they might find some of the lessons are hard to access, but some of the camps are actually getting some of those workbooks themselves, and I have another program I'll tell you about as well. But so for that one, especially if the students were behind prior, and if anybody was invited and didn't, they were tired, it was the end of the school year, and they have since decided they would want to participate, please contact your school, because we do still have some seats available for that. That's
So
even though it started.
It's not too late if you were targeted and invited.
And changed your mind, or even if you weren't, if you think you might qualify, call, because if somebody did decide not to take their seat, the school might still be able to meet your needs.
Awesome.
So, and that's a really fun program with math manipulatives and all sorts of things.
So what else do you have that's going on virtually this summer?
I did forget to say that all of those 2,400 children also have an online teacher available every single day in very small teacher-to-student ratios. So they're also getting help at the individual level.
They're getting extra help.
They are.
They are.
What the other big thing that we did for elementary grades, because that is where the key foundational learning skills are developed, especially K through 3.
Yes.
That's our highest priority right now. We did just, actually it's probably going out today or tomorrow in the mail, we did just finish the printing and stuffing of the envelopes for 13,500 elementary packets of learning to go out to every household. So they are.
So watch for those.
Watch for those
Yes.
coming in the mail. You'll get one for each child in your family who's in those grade levels, going into 1st through 5th grade. And it's a review of the skills that they would have had this year to get ready for next year, just to mitigate, to slow down that summer slide and get kids ready for next year. And our thinking is it's designed to be a half hour a day in reading and language arts and a half hour in math. That's easy for a family to do. No technology required. And but you don't have to use it that way. You could use it, over a longer period of time. It's 4 weeks worth of learning if you do it an hour a day. But you can start as soon as you get them and spread it out or use them any way you want. And we have many, many summer camps who have also decided that they're going to ask their children to bring in those workbooks and work on them during their summer camp time. So that would also help those families who have to work.
And that's great, too, because as we were talking about before the show started, it's already really hot. So they're not going to want to be outside running around all day. Children will probably be kind of relieved to be inside and working on some of this information. So what about the middle and high school age?
Yeah, so middle and high school is a little bit different because they work on individual courses in terms of credits. Most people think of them as credits. And so our target group in those grade levels are really students who either lowered their grade point average significantly or had credits to make up even prior to COVID. And we always initially focus on our 8th graders and our seniors. Our seniors, because they still have time to graduate this school year. We do summer graduation every year, so we do let students who didn't quite finish. So that's a critically high priority group there. And then with 8th graders, if they had any core classes that they didn't pass in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, they cannot move on to high school.
Oh.
So that is state law.
Yeah.
So we work really hard to make sure that we've already targeted those students, but there's always a few left at the end of the 8th grade school year. So that's our first priority. And then we offered opportunities for credit recovery to students in other secondary grades if they were available to do it. And in high school, we did more than we normally do. But we also did change our grading policy for fourth quarter to reduce the number of students that were negatively impacted if the only reason was the virtual learning environment.
How did you do that?
So we did a board policy change for an emergency grade change policy. So, and we didn't announce it till the end because we wanted students to keep learning and keep working toward, doing well in school, because that gets them ready for next year. But we did adjust the policy so that their semester grade would not be any lower than their third quarter grade.
Right.
So if they saw a drastic drop, and that would only affect kids that dropped 2 or more letter grades. So they did not fail if it was purely a matter of virtual learning.
So you had to be flexible, but good idea not telling them till afterwards, because otherwise it'd be like, Mom, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, we didn't want parents in that situation, or teachers or students. So
yeah, that's good. So moving ahead to, of course, August, what will school look like in St. Lucie County in August?
Well, that is the big question that
Yes.
everybody is dealing with and wrestling with right now. And no final decisions right now. I can tell you that we're monitoring all of the data that's coming out from the health department. We work closely with the health department and with CDC, and we are spending our entire summer getting ready for every scenario, so that if we are forced to close, or either district-wide, close and move to virtual, either district-wide or intermittently at certain schools, there could be like brownouts,
hotspots, yeah.
Or a positive case that requires a school to close for 2 to 5 days
Right.
while the contact tracing happens. So we are getting ready for our teachers to be able to switch to virtual much more quickly. We're developing curriculum for the first semester in all of our subject areas. We're going to be doing training along those lines. We're working to purchase and secure more computers so that there's less of a sharing issue if that does happen. We're also looking at blended schedules as a possibility as well, where students come to school some days face-to-face and work virtually others. No decisions as of yet. We did do a parent survey.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, we're
I
getting...
so wanted to fill it out, but I don't qualify as a parent anymore.
Well, we're doing a teacher survey now, and we'll probably do another survey before the school year starts. But most definitely before we finalize any student schedules, we will be surveying everyone to see if they are sending their student back to school in a brick and mortar face-to-face situation, regardless of what we do. Mm-hmm. So we're working to try to have customized service available, customized schedules, and be more flexible than we've ever been.
So one scenario could be that you'd continue virtual learning, or it might be dependent on the school. Another scenario would be blended learning.
Right.
But you do, you think about the middle schools and the high schools with the kids who have 6 different classes,
Mm-hmm.
and that, so they're exposed to, there may be different kids in all of those 6 different classes.
Right. And so doing whatever we can to limit movement as much as possible, but the reality of a secondary schedule is no 2 students have exactly the same schedule. So it's not like elementary where you can keep a cohort together all day long. Mm-hmm. So whatever the final decisions are, we're going to make sure that people make informed decisions. So they'll know exactly what it will look like if we come back to school with everybody in school, or if we come back to school in a blended model. We do have to recognize that there is, of course, a potential risk with that, and families would need to know that if there is a positive case at a school, we would have to follow current, whatever the health department rules are at that time, mm-hmm. and the school could be closed. So it is going to be challenging for everybody, for the teachers, for the parents, and for the students. So we're doing everything we can on our end to make sure that from an academic standpoint, that the curriculum is seamless regardless of the method of learning, and that we can sort of bounce in and out of it if that's what's needed.
Do you have parents already reaching out and saying no matter what happens, we want to switch to completely virtual school?
We had, on the survey, about 20% of the people said that as of that date, and that was between June 1st and June 5th, as of that date, about 20% of the respondents, and it was about 8,500 parents, said that they would go full virtual. We know that number could go up or down depending on what things look like in the end.
Yeah.
And so far, we haven't had a very large number saying that's absolutely what they're going to do. But for those that do decide that is what they're going to do, variable is going to be the question I'm going to ask is for how long, because we'll have year-long options and temporary options. Because some people want to go virtual but still stay attached to their home school. So we're going to work through that with our families.
What about things like extracurricular activities, clubs, and sports?
So we are starting back with some football conditioning and band camps in July, and I believe it's in July, and we will be putting guidelines into place to help make those as safe as possible as well, and of course it'll be voluntary to participate in those. So that'll be a good test and good pilot for getting back into that. In terms of which activities will take place and which ones won't, we will be getting very detailed in that, but we don't have that all outlined yet. We're in the process of developing an extremely comprehensive plan about what back to school will look like, and it includes all of those types of activities as well.
Well, even there's so many different aspects that involve back to school for children, but even the bus on the way there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're watching as guidelines change for the bus as well. We'll probably survey our parents who normally ride buses to see if they intend to continue to do that. I expect that some parents will find ways to transport their children on their own.
Other than put them on a bus.
Yes, because there's all those decisions about taking temperatures, wearing masks, and what do you do when a student's temperature is elevated and they're at a bus stop without a parent. So we're navigating all of that.
Wow. So let's put it in terms of personal terms for you, because at one point you were a teacher, at one point you were a principal, at one point you were the parent of school-age children.
That's right.
So what, as a parent, what do you see the biggest challenges coming up for you?
Well, I think as a parent, everybody's challenge is unique to them, because it really is dependent upon what is your job, what is your flexibility in your life, how many children do you have, do you have anybody in the household that has compromised immune systems, grandparents living with you. There's all those questions. So I think everyone's challenge is unique to them. I hope that what people will discover is that we understand that, and that we are going to do everything we can to try to work with each individual family's need. And then I would ask that parents and the community also understand all the different challenges that a school district has to maneuver as well, and that there is no perfect answer that everyone will agree with and support. So we're asking for everybody just to understand that we have to pay attention to some very critically important priorities: people's health and welfare, their mental health and well-being, their academic progress, food security in our community. That is also part of what the school district does, and also hurricane shelters. We haven't talked about that, but that's in our planning model right now as well.
Yeah, because we are in hurricane season, and things usually get very active in August and September, and that's just about when kids would be gearing up to go back to school.
Right.
And what will a shelter look like when people are socially distancing?
Exactly, and I know that's a community effort. The school district usually opens the majority of the shelters that do exist. And what does that look like next year? We're all working together on that right now.
So I know we see them and hear them on social media and in every community, but do you have parents and teachers who are the naysayers, who are saying it's all a bunch of hooey, that I don't need to wear a mask. I don't need to social distance. If my kid's going to get sick, it's just going to be like a cold.
Oh, of course. We've got opinions on each end of the spectrum. We've gotten calls that, I don't want to wear, employees I'm talking about, I don't want to wear a mask, all the way to I don't want to go in the office because so-and-so is not wearing a mask. Right now, our superintendent is requiring that all employees wear a mask. All visitors, all employees.
And as far as sign-ups for registration, so if you, because in the spring, around March 13th is when people might have been making decisions if their children were starting elementary school or if they were starting middle school or thinking about moving to a new high school. So are those decisions that sometimes they didn't get to tour the schools? Everyone didn't get to tour the schools if they didn't do it before March 13th. What did the parents do about that?
Well, actually, our student assignment process that does address those transition years and the kindergarten years, that was pretty much at the end by March 13th. However, the good news is anybody who was new to the community or who did not take part, all of that had already moved to online. So you can sign up for your school completely on our school district website. So that helped a lot because that was already in place. Those people that want to talk to someone face-to-face, I'm sure they had some challenges because our district office was not open to the public, but our student assignment office now is. So in St. Lucie West, our office is open with a limited staff. You do have to wear a mask, and you do have to go through a checkpoint, get your temperature taken, and be screened. But once in, we do have customer service there for our families who might have questions about that.
Are you still hiring teachers too?
We are. That is the other department in the district office that is open, our HR department, although you can apply for a job fully online as well. We can even do job interviews through Teams. Our HR office is open, same procedures and process. We are working right now, anticipating what next year's budget's going to look like, waiting for the governor to sign the budgets so that we can be sure of, what our financial picture looks like, but we are hiring.
And, of course, probably something that would be effective if you were a teacher looking for a new job is your ability to be flexible.
I always say that in teaching, but now more than ever.
Now more than ever.
As you know, it's an underappreciated job sometimes. I believe it's one of the most challenging and rewarding jobs in the world. But yes, you would have to be someone who is flexible, and you can't count on what tomorrow is going to look like necessarily.
No, but the important thing is that there have been positive changes in people's behavior because they were forced to adapt and change.
That's true. And then I think a lot of people were just surprised at how well they did and how fast they learned. Sometimes people avoid learning new technology or something they're afraid of. And I think some people surprise themselves and are really pleased and proud and looking forward to using those new skills.
I have a friend who teaches at the high school that has a lot of challenges with the students' behavior. And she said that she was really surprised at the number of students who really blossomed with virtual learning because they were not distracted by the other students. They weren't distracted by what goes on in the hallways in between classes. And so a lot of the kids who had behavioral issues just were happy to just sit there and do their work.
Yes, that's one of the discussions I had with Jean Zimba. She is our virtual school principal, Mosaic. She said one of the things that we're going to see is that students are going to really get in touch with themselves as learners and as people, and they're going to learn how they work best. And I have seen comments from students on both ends of that spectrum. I don't learn well this way, and oh my gosh, I'm learning more than I ever have before. Time on task, and so everybody's getting in touch with their own learning styles. That's for sure.
It is. And, people are discovering what they're capable of doing. So, did you have any teachers who just threw their hands up and said, I can't do this?
I'm sure we had a lot of teachers do that on any given day. I don't know that we had any that absolutely said that and meant it and carried through on it. I'm sure there were some challenging moments trying to maneuver the new technology and help your students do so. But I think some of the things that I saw teachers who previously didn't know how to use technology at all, and they just blossomed with such creative, fun lessons. I saw more of that than any negative.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that you already had in place a group of teachers at each school, or a number of teachers at each school that already were skilled in virtual learning and in the Canvas platform, and so they were able to function as a help desk.
It helped a lot. I noticed within a week, teachers were reaching out to their own school-based people. Initially, they were reaching out to us because we were doing the initial training. But once they got past that first step, they were just calling a colleague and helping each other. And a lot of people really bonded across teams.
That's good. And I know that the teachers that I've spoken to have enjoyed being able to multitask too, working from home. And a lot of the teachers who were teaching your kids were also supervising their kids.
Yes.
So that's something else to appreciate.
Yes, because
teachers.
that is not usually the situation for teachers that teach virtually. In fact, it's not permitted. In a normal virtual education setting, the teachers can't be distracted. They're doing real live-time lessons. This was not normal, and everyone had to be flexible and do things differently. And I know that was really hard for our teachers.
So just to go over again some of the programs that are going on this summer and how families who are listening can be involved. You can go to the website. If you were previously contacted that your child qualified for the additional summer schooling and you didn't take advantage of the opportunity, you can contact the school directly.
Yes, if you've changed your mind, you can contact the school directly. You could contact the district office, and we could help as well. I did not mention we also we are doing a summer program for students that are English language learners, newcomers that have been here less than 2 years, and they've gotten some wonderful materials, and they're getting virtual instruction from a bilingual instructor as well this summer. So we have that. And if you don't have children in the system, or children of your own that you need to help support, but you belong to a church or you're in a community agency, please volunteer, because they're having programs this summer as well. And every single program helps students learn and be ready for next year.
So some of the ways people who don't have kids can volunteer are through churches and organizations. Don't call the school district, right?
Right, because we don't have the physical structure happening for them to volunteer in. But if they are connected to any group that does summer camps that allows volunteers to come in, the more help they can get to help supervise students' learning, whether it be on the computer or through the methods the camps already had set up. We want to keep students learning and engaged and exposed to new experiences.
And I know on the food service side that you've moved into the summer feeding program.
Yes.
Which is a Tuesday, Thursday thing.
It is, and it is at various locations across the district. You can see those locations on our website, as well as scrolling on some of our marquees across the county, and call us if you don't know if a school near you is serving food.
And I believe in addition to the school locations, there's a couple of community locations that the school district is serving from as well.
Yes, absolutely, with some of our community partnerships.
With the partnerships. So the important thing is to keep the kids, no matter how old they are, on a forward track and to keep everybody fed and healthy and somewhat happy. So if your child is just graduating and moving on to the next level, You have the graduation that's going to be taking place at the end of June, and it will be an actual graduation. And you said most of them are taking place at Lawnwood.
At Lawnwood Stadium.
So it's an outdoor arena.
It is an outdoor arena. It will be warm. Wear your sunscreen and your hats and your masks. And Mosaic's graduation is going to be in the courtyard at Fort Pierce Central High School. So everybody has an opportunity for a face-to-face graduation ceremony.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that it took a lot of work to get there and to figure it out. And I hope that parents appreciate, because, I did see some comments from parents that said, what do they mean only 2 tickets per person? I was like, if they could just look big picture and see how many school districts across the nation are not doing any type of physical ceremony at all,
right,
they'd realize that, they're really lucky.
Yes, and it's balancing the demands and the requests and still trying to keep people safe.
Yeah, it's very true. And then, as far as learning is concerned, no matter your age, whether you're 0, like 6 months old, or you're a rising senior, one of the things that you can do this summer to stay up to date is to read.
Read every day. Read with your children every day if they're young. Absolutely, that's probably the best thing. Dedicate at least 20 minutes a day to reading. And if you want activities beyond that, please visit our website. There's some Khan Academy is a free resource that most of our students know about. Yes.
Yeah.
And the Scholastic resources that you talked about, they're on there as well. So many great resources that we have out there.
And the St. Lucie County Library is just reopening some of their branches now, but there's a lot of online books that they could get and without even leaving their home and still be able to read. And then when we talk about reading, don't forget that we're talking about reading all different types of things. So if your child would prefer to read Pokemon cards instead of a book, that's still reading.
Cereal boxes over breakfast.
There's a lot
How many calories?
There are a lot of things. Dr. Helen Wild has been my guest with St. Lucie County Public Schools. She is the Chief Academic Officer, and we've talked about everything school district. Again, their Facebook page, their Twitter account, like them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter. Go to the website and see what's out there. There's information that you can gather for no matter whether you're a volunteer or whether you're the parent of a kid. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, so happy. Please invite me back. I enjoy it every time.
Okay. We'll see you next week with more.
The Sue Ellen Sanders Show, with archives on YouTube at WPSLTV.com.